Welcome back to Antigua and Barbuda. Today we're switching our attention from education to the environment now. We're going to be talking to one good person at the Department of Environment and some other contributors to this country's National Environmental Data and Resource Information System. And of course, we're speaking to Jason Williams, who is the department's lead data manager. We're also speaking to David Oswald, who is the NIST consultant and the president and director of D-Design and Environment, and to Dr. Ava Maxam, who is a NIST consultant and deputy director at Mona Geoinformatics Institute. She's also a consultant. Good morning, lady and gentlemen, and welcome to Antigua and Barbuda today.
Hi, good morning, Ursula. Good morning to your listeners and viewers.
All right, now everybody's hearing me and I can hear everybody, so let's start with I don't want to say the local boy. Let's start with Jason Williams. Mr. Williams, good morning. And let's start with the purpose and the benefit of the NIST and the NRI. Just explain what they are for us and what precipitated their need, or need for them, that is.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ursula. Thank you for the question. So the National Environmental Data and Information System, as well as the Natural Resources Inventory, were developed under a Global Environment Facility funded project. The name of the project is Monitoring and Assessment of Multilateral Environmental Agreement, Implementation and Environmental Trends in Antigua and Barbuda. It's a long name for the project. However, we refer to this project as the Cross-Cutting Capacity Development Project, or the CCCD project. So the main aim of this project is to help strengthen capacities within the country to better manage data and information to help us report better to the United Nations Environmental Conventions. So two outputs under this project were the National Environmental Data and Information System, known to us as the NIST, as well as the Natural Resources Inventory, or the NRI. So these systems were created to assist us in better reporting to these UN environmental conventions. The Natural Resources Inventory specifically was developed from a need to implement Part 10, Section 86 of our Environmental Protection and Management Act, which speaks to creating a platform where we can house data and information on the natural resources of Antigua and Barbuda. So these platforms have been created to provide the public with access to up-to-date, credible data and information on the environment.
What types of information do you foresee that the public will want to gain access to? Jason, let's stay with you. What can we find on this portal?
So eventually we hope to have all different types of data and information relating to the environment. So what we start off with is we're looking at the specific UN environmental conventions known as the Rio Conventions. So there's a convention on climate change, there's a convention on biodiversity, and there's a convention on land degradation. So primarily, data will be available on these three main areas. So climate change as it relates to, for example, sea level rise data. If persons would want to know where in Antigua and Barbuda would be impacted by sea level rise over a period of time, they'll get access to that data. As it relates to biodiversity, for example, we have data relating to protected areas. So for those who are interested in finding out which areas in Antigua and Barbuda are protected and who are managing these protected areas, that information will be there. And when it relates to land degradation, we have information as it relates to land cover, land use. So looking at how the land cover in specific areas would have changed over time.
And David, let's come to you next in terms of the design of the portal and in terms of its user-friendly nature and, of course, the agencies to be trained as we go forward in terms of using the portal. Could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think that the design technical team at MGI has done a tremendous job of making this a very easy-to-use system, which is quite a far departure from how these things used to be. If you go back 10, 15 years to what NASA used to offer for their similar types of remote sensing platforms, they were very difficult to use. You needed to have special kind of knowledge to get access to data, whereas this platform is very, very easy to use, easy to find the information you want to find. I think it will be a benefit, and I think people will be interested. I think your average citizens in Antigua will be wanting to go on the platform and check it out, just because it's so easy to look at maps and spatial data and so forth and so on. In terms of the training, it's gone very well so far. We've had a few questions, but nothing like fundamentally identifying flaws in the system or making it too hard to use. If anything, it's just what can we do with this? Like, what is the where is this going to go with this platform? And I think that's a very good sign. Whenever you do seeing training where the people say like, wow, this is great. What more can we do with it? That's a sign that the system has been designed well.
And Jason, let's come back to you quickly in terms of the agencies and people being trained to use the system. Who's been involved so far?
Well, the Department of Environment has extended invitations to government agencies, non-governmental agencies, and civil society organizations. So, for example, from the government, we have Ministry of Agriculture participating. We have representatives from the Ministry of Works. We also have representatives from the Survey and Mapping Division. And we've also extended it to our NGOs, so our environmental NGOs, as well as the CSOs that work in the environment field.
Excellent. Dr. Maxam, let's come to you now in terms of data security issues, and I want you to comment as well on the user-friendly nature of the platform and how you found it to date, and if there are any data security issues that maybe have come into play.
Well, no, I think, there are the standard data security protocols in place, and we ensure that there are different levels of accessing the system. For the most part, the data is freely available, but administrators are the ones really that control what goes on. So there are two parts to the system, and this was developed, with the Caribbean context. We are a company that is based at the Mona Geoinformatics Institute, that's in Mona, Jamaica, and we develop a lot of systems for Caribbean countries. So what's great is that we bring that Caribbean and local context into play in creating the system. So we try to make it relatable, easily, intuitive and accessible at different levels. So there are different permissions that are set, and administrators at the Department of Environment are the ones really that will run what's going on behind the scenes and ensure that the system is working as it should. Now, there are two parts to it. There's the NEIS, which is the National Environmental Data and Information Management System. And that's kind of like the engine of the system. That's where a lot of the data entry happens. That's where you can do a lot of research and create your tags and so on. And then there's a secondary system called the Natural Resources Inventory, or the NRI. And the NRI is kind of like a showpiece. So it's, that's the nice, very interactive for the general user. So a lot of the information on your drought, your rainfall, your temperature, pertinent data that indicates what's happening with our environment, that can be displayed in very beautiful visual way through maps and charts and so on the NRI.
And how monumental have you found these to be, creating these portals, not only for Antigua, but for other Caribbean territories, in terms of their usability, the usability not only on the ground, but for, as Jason would have said, for providing information to these multilateral organizations?
Yeah, so that was, I think, what is so powerful about this tool. I mean, it's meeting so many different levels of users. There's the global user, I should say, for the global purpose of the system, the government of Antigua now wants to meet certain requirements in these United Nations agreements and multilateral environmental agreements that they've signed on to. So to be able to meet certain requirements in that way, at that level, this is a system that streamlines a lot of the information that goes into creating those reports to the UN. At another level, the general user, the layperson, this doesn't have to be someone in government. It doesn't have to be a scientist. It could be, people in communities that are just interested in knowing what's happening environmentally. They can get information from the system as well. So it just means, having an internet connection, being able to log on and register with the system. And in that way, you have so much at your fingertips. You have a lot of data that is now in this central place that you can access quite easily.
All right, Jason, coming back to you, Antigua, unfortunately renowned for not having very good statistics. We are getting better. How much work has gone into providing the resources that can be plugged into the system and then made available?
Thank you for the question, Ursula. So we created this system with funding from donor agencies. So specifically the Global Environment Facility would have provided the funds necessary to create this system. We also work very closely with our implementing partner, the United Nations Development Program. This project started back when COVID was just about starting. So we had intended to have this project run for about 11 months, but due to the circumstances that we were faced with, the project extended a bit. That's why we're now in the place where we're launching it now. So a lot of resources, both financial and technical, went into the system. So we have a team at the Department of Environment, the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Data Management Unit. The entire unit has been involved in this process and have been providing the necessary technical resources to get this project launched.
Great. I remember reading some background, Jason, on it, and it was talking about even those children who are looking for simple information on where to find things, how many bodies of water, how many dams you have in Antigua, that should be available. Are we certain now that we're still ironing out all the kinks, of course, but are we still certain that this will be able to be used by even the youngest of users?
Definitely, as Dr. Maxam mentioned earlier, it's user-friendly. So even the students from, I would say, primary to secondary levels will be able to go on the system and access the data. It's not that difficult to access, so information on different areas are available and they can get access to it.
And David, you made mention of questions being asked in terms of, well, not only the usability, but information being provided. Have we been able to make sure that we implement those changes before we fully launch?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's minor changes that we'll need to be doing. There's none of the questions really were about the technical function of it. Minor ones, at least. I think most of the questions that we received, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason and Ava, have been related to access. So like, how is it implementing and who will have access to what, who can delete what, and what the roles and responsibilities are. And a lot of those issues, that's already built into the system. Like it's we have an access structure and a security structure with different levels of users. Those questions always come out. Have this super user group, we're going to have this manager use, we're going to have these administrators, and then we're going to have general users. I mean, that was one of the questions we had, but that's a natural part of the rollout, and I think Jason will probably address that through the rollout.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about the system is that Jason and the team at the DOE were very robust in, during the testing and development phase of this. So we worked closely with a lot of the stakeholders in Antigua and Barbuda, from government stakeholders to NGOs and private sector stakeholders in making sure that the system works. So, this has gone through a lot of testing operations to get it to this point. And right now, any change that needs to be made is considered quite minor and not, detrimental to the system at all.
All right, Jason, just before we go, could you just provide some information as how we can gain access? Is the website now available? Is the portal now available? And how can we get more information on it for those who are listening and viewing?
Thanks, Ursula. So as David would have mentioned and Ava, we're doing training this week. So we started on Monday, and today is the last day of training. The National Environmental Data and Information System can be accessed at the URL NIS, so NEIS.environment.gov.ag, while the Natural Resources Inventory can be accessed at the URL nri.environment.gov.ag. They are live. As Ava and Dave would have mentioned, they require a user account to get access to the data. But that's simply just sending a request, and then we can arrange for the accounts to be created. For more information on this, you can always contact us at the Department of Environment. Our numbers are 462-4625 and the 562-9616.
Excellent. All right. Jason, David, Dr. Maxam, thank you so much all for joining us this morning. We are out of time for this interview. We ran a full report on this in a newscast earlier this week, but of course we'll be promoting the use of both websites as we go forward. I know lots of teachers may be looking forward to registering and using this with their students, not only in geography, but in other subject areas as well. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Okay. Thank you, Ursula.
All right. You're very welcome. All right, so we will be back on Antigua and Barbuda today. We've got 2 more interviews to go before we go. Stay with us. We'll be right back.